Where do your ideas come from? This can be one of the questions that authors are often a little nervous to get because sometimes there is no easy answer, but it can also be so helpful to get insight from other writers about how they develop their ideas. So today, some of the word nerds are going to dig deep and offer up the goods, sharing with you where we get some of our ideas.
Where do ideas come from? The beauty of that question is that there is no one right answer. The hard part is trying to figure out which answer is right for you. Most of the time, my story ideas start with a piece of dialogue. It is usually an argument between two characters that I just continue to build upon until I find out what they're arguing about, why they're arguing, what's their relationship to each other, and it's those personalities that I kind of build from that initial seed of a conversation that drives that story for me and leads me into what the potential conflict might be. That being said, I wouldn't have nearly as much of a grasp on dialogue as I have if I didn't consume all of the things. Reading is research. Yes, read, but also you kind of want to get that auditory sense of what's going on too. Watch movies, binge watch TV shows, podcasts, music. I got some inspiration from a freaking TikTok last week, for crying out loud. Just open up your mind to all forms of artistic medium because you never know where inspiration is going to present itself.
So one place that I have noticed a lot of my ideas come from is from consuming other forms of media. One of the books that I have been working on for the last 2-ish years came from the idea of watching Pirates of the Caribbean, and partway through it, I just had the weird thought of like, wow, Jack Sparrow would be even more chaotic if he had the powers of King Midas. And that led me to write this long fantasy story about a pirate captain, very Jack Sparrow-esque, but who has the power to turn things into gold by touch. Even more recently, I was watching a video where someone was reviewing a book, and they mentioned that it had like the same kind of vibes as The Great Gatsby, which was one of my favorite books that I had to read for school. And I was like, wow, I would love to do something with The Great Gatsby, but what could I do with it? And I thought about the opening scene with like the green light that Nick can see across the water, and I was just like, what if that was an eldritch god? So now I'm working on a weird, dark eldritch horror that's a Great Gatsby retelling. So yeah, a lot of my ideas come from just consuming other forms of media and then getting like weird combinations to kind of go with it.
So I have a page of notes in my phone that I always just put things down in. If I think of something that I find inspiring, I will just plop it in this ideas folder, and later I can come back and pull things from it. Anything that I'm like, that's kind of cool, maybe I would like to look at that at some point. And some of the stuff I never go back to, but some of it I end up pulling in, and that was what happened with this idea. I'd been in a huge idea slump probably for like 8 months. I hadn't had a fully fleshed out idea, which was causing a lot of problems in my writing life since I was finishing up projects, hoping to move on to the next thing. And I'd been having a lot of random feelings. You know, I had some of these notes in my notes app. I knew I wanted to do an ensemble cast. I knew roughly what I wanted the world to look like. I had roughly an idea of some of the character dynamics that I wanted. Just based off of some of the friendships, and then I'd also seen Rise of Skywalker, and so I had feels about how like Reylo was executed, and I had just been feeling really inspired to try and write something new, but I felt like I was missing something, particularly something about the characters that could drive the plot forward, because right now I just had like some people and I needed them to be able to do something, and so I wanted to really analyze their personalities and figure that out, because I thought maybe if I found that one thing, then I would have what I needed. Kind of simultaneously, I had also been thinking back on this other book that I had written and shelved. It did not sell, and there were so many things that I really loved about it that I kind of wanted to revisit at some point, but definitely not in that book. I didn't feel like that world or that plot even necessarily was strong enough. As I was kind of thinking about all of these things over the course of maybe a month, one day it was just like, aha, like if I cannibalize that old book, take those characters and adapt kind of their arcs into this book, then I can do that thing that I love, and it makes a plot for these other things that I love. And here we are, 25,000 words in, and it's going great.
I find that personally my inspiration often comes from other forms of art. Often I'll be watching a TV show or I'll see a picture of something and it will spark something in my brain. Books are another really big source of that, which is why I find reading widely to be so important. For Witches of Ash and Ruin, I was really inspired by kind of like a combination of books and movies. It was a particular mood of a setting that I kept finding myself really drawn back to again and again, which is why I ended up with this group of women kind of living in this ramshackle old farmhouse that felt somehow really magical. I find that I sort of pick ideas out of different sources and squirrel them back to my nest with like a magpie with shiny little bits and bobs, and then I make a big weird art project out of these shiny scraps I found from various sources I've stolen from. That either makes complete sense or makes me sound totally bonkers. Not sure which.
The idea I had for my first book, Mortality, honestly came with an obsession I had at the time with the show The Walking Dead. I loved it. It was all I wanted to watch, and I really loved the idea of writing a survivor story that was not only all about zombies and surviving in this new kind of Wild West type world, but I also wanted to look at the survivor story of learning to adjust to this new reality right as it's happening and then discovering the rules for this new world. So after taking some time to kind of think about what I could do to give this idea a new spin, something that hadn't been done a bunch of times before, especially because the show was huge at the time and I probably wasn't the only one writing a zombie story, I decided I wanted to look at that process of becoming a zombie for a character who had been bitten at one point and is slowly losing themselves. And from there I kind of fell in love with this whole dual narrative of one person becoming a zombie in the past right as the apocalypse is happening, and then another character kind of surviving in this new world longer after all of the dust had settled and we were figuring out what to do about zombies and how to potentially cure them in order to bring things back to kind of how we used to remember them. It did take me some time to figure out how these two narratives were going to intersect, how my two characters of Zara and Savannah were going to meet at some point, especially if one of them was becoming a zombie or had become a zombie, and the other one was working towards finding a cure and helping this new civilization. So it did take me a little bit of back and forth and trying to get rid of any ideas that had been done to death already and finding new ways to look at zombies and what they meant in kind of a broader thematic scale, which is not my strong suit at all, but it felt important for this particular book, and I'm really happy with how it all turned out.
Thanks for watching, guys. Let us know in the comment how you come up with your story ideas. What processes work for you? Give us a like and a subscribe for more nerdy content. And don't forget to tune in on Sundays at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time for our live chats. Until next time, be nice and stay nerdy.